Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an honor to rise tonight, speak on these important matters. I also want to thank the member in the House tonight for their willingness to speak and make their voices heard. As someone who comes from the war-torn country, I know all too well how important it is for the victims of war and state-sanctioned violence to find moral and political support in the House of the democratic nation and the Parliament around the world. That is why I felt compelled to speak on this matter tonight. Mr. Speaker, as many of you know, I am a political refugee from Sri Lanka. When I was a university student, I witnessed the horror of civil war and the breakdown of my country of birth. I have seen what happened when the government sent its military and the paramilitary forces to brutalize and oppress the slaughter and their own citizens. I have seen and walked across the too many bodies. If that experience taught me anything, it is that when you defend freedom, democracy, peace and human rights, you have a moral obligation to speak out against those who would violate these principles. We cannot sit silent when people around the world are suffering under the yoke of oppression, ethnic hatred and state-sponsored violence. Mr. Speaker, I am passionate about this because my principles are rooted in human rights and standing up for those who have no voice. This is especially true for the women and children who are often the victims of brutal war. Mr. Speaker, I am deeply concerned that if we fail to speak out, if we fail to secure peace, the event unfolding in Nagorno-Karabakh could become much worse, not only for Armenia and Azerbaijan, but for the entire region. The Nagorno-Karabakh conflict is more than 3 decades old. Two former Soviet republics, Azerbaijan and Armenia, fought bitterly over the decade for control of this island. The small population of ethnic Armenians who live there for generations consider it their homeland. On December 10, 1991, the people of Nagorno-Karabakh overwhelmingly voted in favor of independence from Azerbaijan to exercise their right of self-determination. The indigenous Armenian population called it the Republic of Artsakh. Unfortunately, Azerbaijan, as well as many countries in the international community, refused to acknowledge Artsakh as an independent state or country. Since 1988, tens of thousands of people have died. Hundreds of thousands have been displaced, forced to flee, or have lost their homes and their livelihood. While there has been a sporadic fighting since the first full-scale war ended in 1994, I'm deeply concerned, given the recent event, that we are looking at another full-scale war erupting in the region. Mr. Speaker, on September 27th, Azerbaijan violated the 1994 ceasefire agreement in an unprovoked offensive on Artsakh. Reports indicate that well over thousands of people have already died. It is possibly much higher than this. Mr. Speaker, using the weapons and equipment supplied by the Republic of Turkey, Armenia has been under remorseless bombardment by Azerbaijan fighter jet, heavy artillery and drone strike. Residential areas such as school and other civilian infrastructure in Artsakh have been bombed and destroyed. Perhaps as many as 90,000 people out of the only 150,000 Armenians who live there have sought refuge in Armenia or are internally displaced. The capital city of Stepanakert has been bombed daily for the last 3 weeks. Most of the families still living there have fired or living underground shelters. Mr. Speaker, it is nothing less than a gross violation of human rights and international law for Azerbaijani forces with military aid and support from Turkey to subject this small republic to such violence. On Turkey's involvement in the conflict, I want to thank our federal partners and the Minister of Foreign Affairs for suspending export of Canadian drone technology to Turkey shortly after the fighting broke out. Mr. Speaker, the Turkey's Bayraktar B-2 drone uses a sophisticated target acquisition sensor manufactured right here in Ontario. The drone is being used to kill innocent civilians as we speak. A suspension, however, it is not enough to call on the government of Canada to ban any further export of military hardware to Turkey so long as those weapons of war are being used against innocent civilian and civilian infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, footage and photographs have emerged over the past few weeks since the conflict started, possibly implicating Azerbaijani military personnel in war crimes. In one incident, 2 POWs were beaten, verbally humiliated, and executed. A disabled man, along with his elderly mother and caregiver, were marked out and murdered. Perhaps more shocking, Azerbaijani soldiers beheaded an Armenian soldier and taunted the victim's family by posting a photo of his decapitated head on social media. This shocking execution followed the emergence of video footage that appears to show jihadist group fighting on the front line against the Armenian forces. That jihadists are now in the Azerbaijani to terrorize the Armenian population is undeniable. Multiple reporting from France and the United States and elsewhere have confirmed that Turkey has brought hired foreign jihadists to fight from Syria and Libya to fight against Al-Shah. Mr. Speaker, this is incredibly worrying. We don't know how many foreign fighters there may be in Azerbaijani, in Akash, or Armenian proper. We know what such forces are capable of, and unspeakable violence and terror they bring into innocent civilians. Mr. Speaker, it must be stated that Armenians have every right to raise the alarm bell over the concern of genocide and ethnic cleansing. After the First World War, 1.5 million Armenians were killed by the Ottoman Empire in one of the worst genocides of the 20th century. To this day, Turkey still denies it committed genocide against its Armenian minority population. This is completely and totally unacceptable. Leaders in the Armenian community are warning me that they are genuinely concerned about the ethnic cleansing if Azerbaijan and Turkey's backed jihadists capture the Al-Shah. Mr. Speaker, so where do we go from here? The OSCE Minsk Group, which was created in 1992 by the Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe to encourage a peaceful resolution to the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict, has largely failed. Repeated calls from the international community for peace have failed to end the conflict. 2 recent ceasefire attempts have failed to bring about peace. The Foreign Affairs Minister of Armenia and Azerbaijan are scheduled to meet independently with the United States Secretary of State later this week. Given this conflict has raged for over 3 decades and shows no sign of ending anytime soon, we need to ask ourselves, what is the path to peace? What will truly bring about lasting peace for those 2 communities? Mr. Speaker, we know that bullet bombs and guns are not the answer. That is not the path to peace. Subtle diplomacy, middle power politics, and other mechanisms of international relations are temporary fixtures. But that is not enough. Canadian Armenian community tell me they want peace. They desperately want the resolution to conflict that has torn apart thousands of lives and has left the region in a state of constant instability. Mr. Speaker, when I was forced to leave under threat of persecution, I landed first in Europe, but I chose to come to Canada. I came to this beautiful country because of the values this wonderful nation built on. The nation that's built upon democratic freedom, the deep respect for human rights, and genuine desire to see peace, harmony, and love in the world. That is what I found and arrived here more than 30 years ago. In closing, I firmly believe that Armenia, Azerbaijan, and the Republic of Artsakh have the right to live and coexist as a sovereign nation. If the Armenian population of Nagorno-Karabakh wishes to live as a separate nation, state and country, they have the right to do so. Self-determination is a human right, and we must say loudly and clearly that it must not come at the cost of fear, violence, or threat of bomb and terror. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Path to peace. Thank you.
Very much.